Well, hello, Atlas campus. How you doing? Good? Enjoying the conference so far? This is my first Atlas camp in 14 years. So I'm James and Mel. I'm a group product manager for Forge.
Hi, I'm Mel, and I am a developer advocate on the developer advocates team. I'm going to move a little bit over.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit further over.
Okay.
And we're here today to talk to you about UI, and specifically building sleek apps with the ease of Forge UI.
And it's pretty cool. I don't know how many of you have experimented with Forge UI before. Can I get a... Okay. Who used it in the last 6 months? Hands up. Who used it in the last year? Who's using it? Who was using it a year ago but is now not using it? Okay, that's a good sign. All right, so Mel must be doing something right. Why don't we get started?
Yeah.
I'm going to hand over to Melissa.
Cool.
Cool.
All right, so what is Forge UI? It sounds like most of you are familiar with it. So Forge UI, also known as UIKit, is a component framework that allows you to build amazing apps using Forge that look and feel like Atlassian products. And there are 4 big reasons why we think that you should be building with Forge UI rather than something like custom UI. So the first thing is the alignment with the Atlassian design system. So all 50 plus components within UIKit or Forge UI align with the Atlassian design guidelines to give you great looking UIs with minimal effort. Secondly, component protections. Our design system is open source, but built Atlassian, and we move incredibly fast. So when you're using Forge UI components, you can focus on your product rather than the changes to the Atlassian design system, which Forge UI manages for you. So next, it's flexible. You can start building with Forge UI, and then now with the use of Frame, you can extend it with Frame to build your own components if required. And finally, it's industry standard. So by adopting React, we've made it easy for any developer to get started quickly with Forge UI.
Cool. Ignoring the slide that got converted from Google Slides to PowerPoint and is not very well formatted, we're really, really happy. Last year, we actually announced the GA of UIKit 2. And when we did that GA, we renamed UIKit to Forge UI to kind of simplify the naming. So if it's been a while since you last looked, there's been significant changes, and we're really happy to report that there are over 380 marketplace apps currently using Forge UI, which is a huge achievement. So thank you to all of the developers out there who have been working with us to give us feedback on Forge UI. Requesting new components from Atlas Kit that we've brought into the UI kit. And we're really excited, if you haven't worked with Forge UI before, that it will power your next app too. So, Melissa, do you want to?
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so just to give you some context, I thought it would be great to give you a bit of a history of Forge UI. So I mentioned that it's gone through some big changes in the last 12 months. So let's get up to speed a bit. So when Forge was announced at Atlas Camp 2019, who was there? Not that many of you, cool. Okay, so we had a clear vision for Forge UI. We wanted it to be simple and easy to use. We wanted to put trust and security first, and we wanted effortless cross-platform compatibility. And while Forge UI has definitely evolved since 2019, that vision does still guide us. Our initial Forge UI release was easy to use, but UI calls were run through Forge functions as a service. And so they were a little bit slower than if you'd run them directly in the browser, and components didn't always match up with their Atlas Kit component equivalents. So in 2021, we added custom UI as the second UI extensibility option for Forge to support migrating enterprise customers who were already invested in their preferred frameworks. And that was great for apps that were migrating from enterprise or even connects, because it allowed them to use their existing UI that they'd already built out. But it wasn't possible to mix and match those custom UI interfaces with UIKit options. So everything had to be built from scratch. You couldn't use parts of the pre-built and maintained libraries. So we realized that basically that initial offering didn't nail the brief. And with a few years of experience under our belts, we decided to work on a new iteration of UIKit, which you guys seem to be quite familiar with. So that's we called it UIKit 2 initially when we announced it at EAP. And in 2024, it was officially released to GA. And James has already told you about lots of the benefits of that. So let's get James to tell you about what's new in Forge UIKit.
Cool. Thanks, Mel.
Oh, Forge UI.
Yeah, we need
I'm
like
gonna
a
keep
tip
saying-
jar, like whenever we change product names, it's like a big tip jar, and every time anyway. So what's new in Forge UI? So as I mentioned before, Forge UI has changed a lot. In the last year, we've added over 20 new components, and as Melissa mentioned, it now runs in the browser, and the API has been simplified. So it's making it really similar to those Atlas Kit components that you're used to. But since we went GA early in the year, last year, we've actually added an expanded UI to support a bunch of different new use cases. So you may have seen that we launched UI visualizations. We've been working with our team, the Atlassian visualization platform, to build a whole new set of charting components and data visualizations that really help organize and present data visually, clearly, and beautifully. And it's no surprise that all of these will look like the new charts and visualizations that we're rolling across all the Atlassian products over the next year. Cool. So just a little overview of the components. We have a really great bar chart, horizontal bar chart, a stacked bar chart, a horizontal stacked bar chart, all of the different combinations that you can kind of think of. There are more in the pipeline that are coming. And we've also got very simple charts, line charts, pie charts, and single value charts. The Atlassian Visualizations platform team have done an amazing job at really thinking about the science of data visualization, and we're hoping to pass those benefits on to you as we move from EAP into GA over the next couple of months. So that's UI visualizations. If you want to check out UI visualizations, I've created a QR code, and I'll just hold that up here for you now. Hopefully it goes to the right place and not to like google.com or something, so let me know. There's a really great demo in there of like a dashboard built into the Jira projects, a user experience that uses live Jira data and displays and visualizes that. So definitely check it out. I believe the example's all in TypeScript, so you should be in good hands there. And then excitingly, we're introducing UI Frame. So as Mel mentioned before, if you started with Forge UI and then you needed to bring in your own components or a third-party component, it wasn't possible. You had to start again. So what Frame does is it allows you to bring in external components into the Forge UI component tree. So for example, on the left-hand side here, I have a UIKit user interface where you can select an icon and define a radius. And then on the right-hand side, a custom UI resource that modifies this image inside the canvas. And this is made possible, communication is made possible between UIKit components and custom UI resources using the Forge Bridge API. And we've also created the Frames prop helper. So we've simplified this communication. So as you can see here, we use a create frame React hook to create the frame, which you then put in your component tree. And then you can define a callback when the props on that component change, and then allowing you to adjust that custom UI resource that's inside that component framework. So if you're currently looking at, you're a Connect developer, you're looking at migrating to Forge, you've already got a huge investment in your UI, but you want to start using UIKit and all of the benefits that brings, you can start using Forge UI and just start importing those existing investments as you choose to either continue using the UI that you've built, or you want to rebuild with UIKit. So it's pretty awesome. And you'll see more of frame and visualization in Mel's demo. And we have a really great repository that you can check out of how frame works. And I believe Mel will also provide the repository for the demo as well. Is it in the slide?
I may not have put it in the slide, but I'll definitely tell you how you can get the repository.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. I'm going to hand over to Mel, who's going to take you through how to use UIKit and some of the new capabilities we've walked through today.
Wait,
no.
No.
We missed one thing.
Yes.
One more thing. It's my error. There is a bit more that we're working on. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll be releasing the visualizations frame and internationalization for UIKit and Forge UI as GA. We've also been making great strides in improving our extensibility support for Forge UI. So you can now create full-bodied macros for Confluence, and a bunch of other Jira extension points are now available for use within UIKit. And last but not least, we are putting out an expression of interest for Forge real-time UI. So if you want to get rid of refresh buttons or create multiplayer experiences where you have a whiteboard or something like that, where you can see the mouse pointers moving around in real time, we're going to be introducing that into Forge UI later in the year, and it's going to be awesome. So come see me after the session if you're interested in real-time UI, because I need some more testers to help us get ready for EAP. Cool. And now, if you want to learn more about the Forge roadmap and what we're doing in UI and other things in Forge, there's a QR code on the display. What we're trying to do as well in ecosystem, just as an aside, is be a lot more transparent about the things that we're thinking about building, opening that up to you as early as we are aware that we're going to commit to building something, to get your feedback and to make sure that, as you give us feedback, we're proving to you that we're listening to you. So, cool. So, Mel, let's dive in.
Yeah. Thank you. So I think that last bit was kind of important because it was what a lot of people are probably here to hear about, the new things that are coming. So now that James has told you about what is currently possible with UIKit, I've built a custom report in Jira to show you what it's capable of now. So we're going to be going through what it takes to build this. We'll start with this project that I've prepared earlier. It's a Jira UIKit project page module created with the Forge CLI. And I've modified the resolver to call the Jira API to get all the issues created for the specific month that a user is going to be able to select and sort them depending on whether they were resolved in under X days, between X and Y days, and over Y days. So the app has also been modified to display a selector, which allows the user to choose the month from the past year. And I've already deployed it and installed it to my development environment. So if you're not familiar with how to do any of those things, we have great documentation available for Forge, either in the Forge Getting Started guide or at Forge Quest. And that'll help you get started with this. And there'll be a link to that at the end of this demo. So now to display the data, I'm going to use a pie chart visualization, which James was talking about earlier. Just a quick note, the colors on this screen are a bit weird. The great thing about the chart is it already looks like it fits in with our products, and it can be added with only a few lines of code. And so the data object itself is flexible. You have the option of using an array of arrays or an array of objects. And then you can specify the color accessor, label accessor, and value accessor to determine which position within your array or object corresponds to which part of your chart. So let's see how it looks in the app. Okay, so as you can see, the pie chart's been added now to my return statement. And it's going to display the resolved issue information. I've also added a title and subtitle with more information. Those are optional. And I've wrapped it in a check so that's not going to display anything if the report data hasn't been returned yet. And so now I'm going to add a bar chart to represent the unresolved issues for the month by age. So again, that data may be in the form of an array of arrays or an array of objects. And in the case of the bar chart, there are X and Y accesses to determine which array data is used on which axis. Now, since I'm only displaying one set of values, I'm not using the color accessor in this case. All right, so there's that bar chart in the app. And I'm not sure if you may not be familiar, but we now have Flexbox components like inline, which allow us to specify that we want to put components next to each other. And so I'm using that here. Okay, so you can see that, you can see that that's still under 100 lines of code to get that UI. So now let's start the tunnel and take a look at those charts in the app. And I'm just going to make sure, yep, video is playing. Okay, so yeah, we're going to start the tunnel now and then waiting for it to run. Okay, and now if we look at the app, we select the month. It's now displaying those two charts with the data from Jira, from the Jira project. Okay, but what if I wanted a different chart? Atlassian offers some really nice options, sure, but I really think my report needs some visual impact using PhysX. No problem, we can add our own custom component using Frame. So James already introduced Frame, and basically it acts like a container rendering static front-end apps like HTML, JavaScript, and so forth. And it can communicate with the main app using the Events API. So we have the choice of either bidirectional or broadcast communications. And it can interact with the Jira API through the resolver functions that I already defined. I decided that, so there are a few ways that you can create a frame. There's the tutorial that James already linked you to, which will take you step by step through creating a new frame component. But for me, I actually like to just use the existing blank repository, copy the frame component into my app and go from there. And so that's what this is for. This will take you to the blank repository, and specifically this is the TypeScript one. So if you want to just create a TypeScript frame straight away, you don't have to muck around with anything. Okay, so let's go. So I'm going to create a new folder within the top directory of my app now called resources. And then I'm going to copy those resources across from the clean slate repository. And while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to have a quick drink. Okay, so I've pasted those across, and now you can take a look at the README, which I'm going to do now. And it's going to show you what you need to do to make this work. So you need to run the npm install and the npm run build, but we're still waiting for that to paste. So we're going to head on over to the manifest, where we're going to specify the details of the frame so the app knows where to find it. And so what we need to do there is add a new function to our Jira project page, another resource to our Jira project page module. So we'll add a key, I'm just going to call it frame, and then we're going to add the path, which is going to be, not that, it's going to be resources/frame hello world/build. Yes, build. Okay, so the other thing that we need to do here is add another permission. So the permission that we need to add is to add the content style. And so we're going to add that in here too. And so that's the unsafe inline style. And that just is to make sure everything works. Okay, so that's done, and now we can also see that the files have also finished copying, so we can go into the resources/frame hello world directory and we can run those npm install and npm run build statements. to install all of the dependencies that we need and create the build. Nice. And that was super quick. Okay, and so now we just need to run a tunnel. Oh, actually, I lie. We changed the manifest, right? So we don't need to run a tunnel, we need to run a deploy. So we're going to deploy that, and then it's going to tell us we need to update the app. I should have created some elevator music for this. I recorded this from Atlas Camp, so my network at home is faster. Yeah, okay, so now we need to run the Forge install upgrade to get that new version of the manifest pushed into our app. So I'm going to do that, and then we will be able to check that it's working. Cool. Oh, I forgot one thing as well. We actually need to add the frame to our UI kit front end app so that it actually knows to display it. So I'm just going to be, oh, this is not the right place. I apologize. This was supposed to be a slightly different video, but there was a slight snafu with the video this morning. Okay, so I'm adding the frame to the front end of my app, and now at the bottom of the two bar charts that are already, to the two charts that are already there, I'm going to add that frame component to display below. And now I'll be able to start the tunnel. Oh, and I need to check, I'm just checking that the name matches. So this is just going to be called frame. So yes, so the resource name that you use there is corresponds to the resource name that you gave it in the manifest. Okay, so now I'm starting the tunnel, and so this is what we're going to see on the screen. So it should say hello world, and then it should get the data that comes up from the get text call from my resolver function. So let's check that that worked. Okay, and so that's displaying, and if I get my chart components, it will still continue to display. Nice. Okay, but that's still not the VisX, right? Now we've got to make sure that our app has the necessary setup to get the issue data. So first we're going to need to add the event subscription service in the frame and add somewhere to store the config. So oh no. Okay, I'm really sorry, but my video doesn't appear to be working, but that's okay. I'm just going to explain what I did here. So essentially, what I've done is I'm going to be replacing, so I'm going to add an event subscription service to the frame, and I'll create a config object, which will be a use state variable, which I'm going to use to store the config data that I get from my main app. After that, I'm going to change that invoking get text, and I'm going to instead call the get issues, which I had in my previous API to get the data for the charts. And then finally, when the data comes back from the resolver, I'm going to set it up so that I've got to create another function so that it reformats that data into something that the VisX library can use. And so then I'm going to add this VisX bar chart into my app. And so I also need to run an npm install VisX statement to actually install those dependencies, and then I'll need to run a build again. Cool. Okay, so now the final thing that we need to do is pop the VisX chart function into the app. yay, this video is working. So I'm using the chart that I prepared, a chart that I've prepared earlier because we do have a limited amount of time today. And I really wanted to focus on the most important features of the frame. But as you can see, I've added all of this physics code here now. And I guess this is a good time to plug the UI kit charts because there's so much less code, right? So much less stuff to keep an eye on. But yeah, so I'm just going to now call that chart function. And there we go. So the chart's added in now. And so now I need to run the npm run build again because I've made changes to my app. And my tunnel's already running still. So if we go in now, we should be able to see all of our charts. Fingers crossed. And there we have it. So that is what you get standard from the bar chart. It doesn't have any labels or anything. Yeah, I've added my physics component. So with Forge UI, you can take advantage of all of the powerful existing Atlassian design-aligned components like charts, so that you can focus on the other things like the functionality of your app. But you've got the security and flexibility if you need it to create your own custom components. I hope that encourages you all to take a look at Forge UI when you're next building your Forge app or migrating your existing apps. And that's the Forge Quest link. So that's it. We've got time for Q&A, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.